Om Shanti. Of course, I knew Dadi Janki from childhood. And so when we'd go to children's class, I would meet Dadi at that time. And at one point, I remember that this would have been 1957, and it was the month of April, the summer holidays in India. And Dadi would come and visit us in the class. She lived in a little room with another sister just across the road, but across the way was a garden where we would have our morning class, and that would be around 10:30 in the morning. And it was a group of about 8 of us. And Daddy would come and meet us sometimes. And sometimes when she would see that it was already 12 o'clock because there had been something entertaining and we'd been experiencing a lot of joy and fun. And then she would say that 12 o'clock and the children have to yet get home. And so she would come and feed us something nourishing, something sweet, whatever it is she had. But it was later on, much later, that I realized that what she was sharing with this little group of children was probably her lunch. Life was very basic, very simple. And so she probably didn't have anything else that she was going to cook that day. But at that moment, it wasn't any concern for her to skip lunch. Her concern was, it's going to take time for the children to get home. And so just that spontaneous act of love and kindness for the children, just to keep them going till they got home. So that was Dadi's generosity. So I know that there's always a question, is it that there's abundance first or is it generosity first? And my personal experience was at first it was generosity. When you don't think about yourself and you're thinking about others, your heart is big and generous. And then, according to destiny, generosity brings abundance. And so, of course, within a short space of time, abundance had come, not only in India, but also she brought abundance with herself to London. She was invited to come to London because when the exhibitions had been planned for London in Piccadilly Circus at what was at that time called the Ceylon Tea Centre, and in Oxford Street, and that was at the India Tea Centre. So I'd organised those before I left for India in 1973. And so in 74, a couple of sisters were here in London, and it was Sister Mohini, who's now in New York, and also Dr. Nirmala, who's now in Madhuban, Gyansrovar. And when they saw that service was moving at a very slow pace, Mohini Ben wrote to Madhuban saying, we hope that Madhuban Baba can send Dadi Janki to London so that she can decide how we move forward with this. And why Dadi Janki? Because she has a long-standing relationship with Rajni Ben, the main instrument who has started the centre in London. And I was, of course, there also. But basically it was because of Dadi's long-standing relationship with service in foreign lands. And so Baba and the Dadis decided that Dadi had to come to London. And they asked me to accompany her as her translator. I wasn't too comfortable to do that. I wanted to stay in India, but I was asked to come back, so I was practicing obedience, so I said yes. And as soon as Dadi arrived in London, things just sparked. People from the local community, the British community started to come, and somehow she knew exactly what they needed. The depth of her explanation of spiritual teachings and the connection of those spiritual teachings that had been imparted in India up until then, but their relevance to life abroad and to modern times, and in particular to the Western mind and heart. And so the first BK students who were totally dedicated began, and they then became teachers, one for Australia, one for the world, and she's still doing service, sometimes in Europe, sometimes in America, sometimes in the UK. Sister Denise and the other brother, now more or less retired from service, Brother John, who had gone to Australia to start the first center there. So I could see that Baba had sent Dadi for a very specific purpose, and things just began to flourish in so many different ways. But there was one particular scene that I want to share. Every morning, and at that point it was just Dadi and myself who were there, every morning after our early morning meditation, we would sit together and she would share something from either her morning Amrit Vela, the nectar time experience, or whatever it is she was inspired. But this particular time she shared her dream. And she shared how she was seeing this beautiful, elegant staircase. And at the top of the staircase, there was a wonderful family who was just waiting to receive spirituality into their home. That would have been around October, November in 1974. And through the following year, I kept looking out for a home with a beautiful, elegant staircase, hoping to find a family that was waiting for spirituality, and I didn't find one. But finally, in December 1975, I was invited. I'd been invited several times, but this time Dadi made it happen, because I was being invited to go to Guyana, South America. And I really didn't feel that I was the right person to go. I thought it should be somebody more senior. It should be somebody more experienced. So I was waiting for someone senior who would be available to go. And Dadi said, but you can go. You're Baba's instrument. And so she sent me to Guyana. Off I went. And I was received by Mrs. Betty Narayan, who was at that point on the committee of the Mahasabha there. And so on behalf of the Mahasabha who had invited me, she was there. She was the wife of a cabinet minister at that time. And through the journey to her home, we were going to her home. Through the journey, she was very keen, very interested to know about spiritual teachings. And we arrived at her home, and I entered the home, and I saw this elegant, beautiful staircase and a family waiting at the top. And it was exactly as Dadi had described in her dream. And of course, the rest is history. The family was the Narayan family, and it was Uncle Steve with the daughters and the son at the top of the stairs. And they were just ready for spirituality, and they became amazing instruments for sharing the spiritual teachings across the whole of the Caribbean, but also in New York. So it was a very historic moment, but of course when you're living history you don't always realize it. But I knew I was seeing Dadi's dream come alive. So Dadi's perception was something quite amazing. Again, I feel that she had this gift of being able to look at a soul and see their future. She would look at a situation and understand how things would develop, and whether it was inspirations from above or her own intuition or visions and dreams, it was all very, very real. And very often we would go to Dadi with questions, and she wouldn't answer us on this level. It would be a very practical situation, but her answer was never just connected with practicality. Her answer was connected with spirituality. And of course, if you follow the path of spirituality, then the practical is very natural and easy. And so the vision of having a place for spiritual teachings in London, that became real because she was working on spiritual principles. So Global House took shape. Her vision was also of having a retreat place. And again, that became the Global Retreat Center just 2 years later. And her next vision was having a place in central London, and Inner Space in Regent Street began. So spirituality means having a heart that's big and open, but also having a head that's very, very clear. And so steps are taken in the right direction to manifest pure thoughts and dreams and visions and make them real. Om Shanti.